What's up? So after a long, exciting 4th of July weekend, we are so glad to be back and talking about another part two of our favorite book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. And so I will hand it over to Chris to start his reflection, and then we will get on with it.
Yeah, excited for it. So just a quick heads up to any listeners out there today. Our household did get hit with COVID over the past couple of days, so I might, have a few coughs here. So bear with us as we're going through. But everybody's fine. We're good. Yeah, just wanted to give that disclaimer before we started. That said, today as you just mentioned, we're going to be doing a part 5 reflection for or 5-part reflection for the 7 habits of highly effective people. So today's reflection, the second one, will be the power of a paradigm shift. And I will go ahead and fire up my screen and we can talk about it. So this one's actually a pretty heavy topic, and you know the story. You've read it in my book, and we've talked about it many times before. But it's the first time we'll be sharing it with the audience and having a discussion around it that we can share with other people. But the author Stephen Covey, he talks a lot about in the opening few sections of the book paradigms in general, and how the mental models and unique ways that each of us kind of view the world. And he specifically uses the analogy of like a map, right? Like if you're trying to get somewhere or go to the same place as somebody else, like if you're trying to go from New York to Chicago and you're looking at a map that is only showing you Minneapolis to Seattle or something along those lines, like it's an impossibility for you to be able to get from New York to Chicago kind of thing if you're looking at the wrong map. So it's that's kind of a paradigm, I guess. It's your lens on the world. It's your map, the way that you view the world, right? So for anybody to have communication with each other, they got to be at least viewing things from the same map. Otherwise it's impossible to communicate. So for me, like when I first read this book in February of 2020, like we talked about before this whole journey really began, I understood this, but I don't know that I really understood it, right? Like I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Everybody get on the same map, and we can all align and yada yada yada. For me, that would all personally change where when I personally discovered the power of a paradigm shift with a very personal story that I'll share. So when my daughter passed away on April 22nd of 2020, and this is a few months after reading this book, and we had just left the hospital that day. I will never forget the entire time that I spent with my daughter, but specifically that last 6-8 hours ish that we spent with her as we extubated her, and my wife held her as she passed away, and it was incredibly emotional, and I mean I really can't even put into words to you I know we talk about always be impeccable with your words. I mean, I try to write it in the book that I wrote, but it's something that I don't know, it's hard for me to even describe.
There's no words I think that can equate to that emotion that you're feeling, and I can sense some of it based on the word that you chose. But imagining it, if I were in your shoe, using what I think I can see through my eyes, like I said, I agree. There's no word that can equate with that. Just that feeling and emotions and I mean, like I say, you have to be there. And the thing is, the way that you wrote the book, it's so powerful. It's because you wrote it as you were there, versus having a recollection of what you could remember. That's a big difference, and that's the reason why I think a lot of the emotion I could feel it, just because you had so fresh of a thought, because you wrote it as a journal, versus having a memories of the past and trying to recall it. And that puts you in the place.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, there's no way that I could ever adequately, I mean, it's an impossible task to try to describe how that feeling was to and I know, honestly, that was by far the hardest thing that I wrote I mean, every single day, I think when I wrote
Mm-hmm.
that book, I pretty much cried until I got past this section of the book. I mean, I actually, I don't know if you remember this, but I took like a week off. I wrote every single day for the past 2.5 years. I've written like toward a book in some way, shape, or form, and worked on a book in the past for the
Mm-hmm.
past 2.5 years. There's only been 2 breaks that I've taken from writing. One was that week in between Christmas and New Year's of 2020 when I was at this stage of the book that I was writing about, because I just couldn't. I don't know. It was just too hard for me to even. It was hard. It felt like I was back in the room, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second time I took a break was when I went to Hawaii, and I was like, I'm just gonna give myself a break, because that was way different
Right.
time, different mindset at that point in time. But anyway, like this was an incredibly hard thing for me to write about, obviously. But in particular, moving past that stage, it was what I really vividly remember the most after our daughter had passed away was getting back home from the hospital at around like 6 a.m. in the morning, because we'd extubated her around 10 p.m. the night before, and processed around like 10 p.m. the night before, and then officially extubated her. I can't remember the exact time, but either way, like we were up all night long, and
Mm-hmm.
we were exhausted, we were tired, we just gone through something incredibly emotional, and something I'll never forget about for the rest of my life. And we get home, collapsed in bed at like 6:45, 7 o'clock, something like that, 7:30 in the morning. And that was the first time that we'd really had any chance to kind of just let our guard down in general, especially given the last few days of the whole ordeal with Amelia, just always on edge for probably about 5 days straight, basically, and culminating and that experience. And our bodies just kind of gave out in exhaustion, my wife and I. And I remember waking up after that, and just experiencing this just pure nothingness. Like, I mean, everything was just around me. Like, I don't know. It almost felt like I had not a single thought in my head. It was just, I couldn't focus. I couldn't even focus on anything, let alone like one thing, or like meditate or something along those lines. It was just, everything just felt blank. And, it took every ounce of my ability that day, to channel my daughter, basically, just even get out of bed and go, do these things that we talk about doing every single day that are now routine and easy, but like, using Amelia's strength and what she showed me in her fight, like, was the only way I even got out of bed that day. And somehow I convinced my wife to go take a walk on that day, to go honor our daughter at around the time that she was born, which was 5:16 p.m. And we got out of the house finally, and it was just happened to be like this beautiful spring day. It was April 22nd was the day that she passed away. So if you're familiar with the spring in the Midwest, it's like, it's probably one of the most beautiful times of the year is late April, May. It's like 70 degrees. Some days it's kind of hit and miss sometimes with weather, but like, when the weather's really nice, it's like just gorgeous. The birds are chirping, the grass is green, the flowers are blooming, it's like beautiful 70-degree weather out or something along those lines. It's the reason why people stay in the Midwest, like it's, for like those handful of days a year that you actually get where it doesn't suck. It was one of those days, actually. I mean, obviously I wasn't thinking in that regard, but it just happened to be one of those days. So, after my wife and I finally got out of the house, and we, just did everything we could, even put a few feet forward to walk out the door, kind of thing, and to try to go take a walk together, to think about our daughter and everything that we'd been through, just less than, I don't know, not even 24 hours, removed from that whole experience of Amelia literally passing away in her arms. We're walking down the street, and it's this beautiful spring day, and everybody, as you can imagine, would be in our neighborhood. We live like, I don't know, less than a quarter mile away from a pretty sizable park, and everybody goes up and down our street, in particular, walks by our house all the time to go to the park, from our neighborhood. And there's people with all their kids and families and pushing strollers, and they're wandering by, and they're all excited to be out and enjoying this day and going to the park. And on this other side of the street, there's this couple, or seemingly a couple, I guess. Once again, the whole point of this is you don't really know, right? Where my wife was just bawling her eyes out, just uncontrollably sobbing, and as she's walking down the street, and I'm, not even really even in the same planet as everybody else either. Like I said, my brain was still in nothingness. I was still stuck in the hospital with my, well, I wasn't even stuck there. I don't know where I was. To be honest with you, I wasn't where everybody else was walking down the street is the point. I happened to recognize that my wife was crying. Not that I didn't notice it, but it just, once again, I was in my own world and just staring down at the ground and, just trying to put one foot in front of the other. And I happened to like glance up a couple times and see some of my neighbors passing. And at the time I didn't really think much about it. But walking by a couple that are walking down the street, this woman's uncontrollably sobbing, the guy's just staring at the ground, like nobody's talking. Like, I was, a part of me later on down the road in retrospect and reflecting back on this moment, started to think like, what do these people think? I know for damn sure what I would have thought. And I've asked you this question before, I guess, what would you have thought if you were the neighbor walking by, and you're just walking down your street in your own neighborhood and it's a nice day outside. Like, what would you think? What would be the first thing that you would think about this?
You're an asshole.
Right. Exactly.
Because the thing is, like you say, I'm using my map, which is, everybody is enjoying the beautiful spring day. And certainly, this guy's wife or significant other is crying his eyes out, right? And
right.
He's just standing there as he's like lost in some kind of world of himself. And like, what did you do?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You did something horrible.
That's in all fairness, like I would say 99% of the time, that's probably going to be an accurate thought, right? Like, but it's that 1% of the time where I was on that 1% of the time, where it wasn't the accurate thought. It wasn't, your assumptions weren't real. You're validated. As a matter of fact, your assumptions were so horribly wrong that it's almost like painful to even think about how horribly wrong that your assumptions may have been about that. And this is an extreme example, but I'm giving this because this is when I really realized the power of a paradigm shift. Like you just never know what is going on anybody you pass in their life and what their lived experiences are and what their paradigms they're viewing the world through. So it took an experience like that for me for the concepts that Stephen Covey was talking about this book to make sense in my own head. And it's something that I try every single day, it's still even hard today. As I say this, like, and I'm describing the situation, even for me, like, now I'm not too far removed from this. And this whole entire journey is about talking about stuff like this and writing about stuff like this. And I've written books about shit like this, right? Like, and we've talked about this a million different times. And even for me, it's still really, really, really tough to pause, stop, think, and not assume what's going on the other side of the street. And that's that's the power of a paradigm shift, right? Like you have to be able to go up to somebody, ask them a question, share their story, figure out like what's going on. Don't just assume, because you can't, like you said, you can't read the same map if you're not willing to go talk to somebody to even understand what planet they're even on right now, and understand what their story and how they got to be where they got to right now. I don't know. That's the high level gist of the story. I know there's probably lots to unpack there, so I'll just pause there for right now and see if what thoughts that brings up in your mind.
Well, like one other thought that brings up to my mind, I think for me, you mentioned that like 99% of the time people will be correct in calling you an asshole, and because you're the extremely. But I think I disagree with that, because I think there's much more. I think it's the majority of the time we are wrong in terms when we assume.
Oh, I agree.
Because the thing is, the people that sees you on that day, and they think you're an asshole, you never corrected them.
Right.
For them, as far as they know, they will correct.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if for me, if somebody misjudged me for whatever reason, there's not a there's not a like the right timing for me to correct them, right? There's not an opportunity for me to do that. They just assume. And a lot of times, not like, hey, I'm assuming this, here's a chance for you to correct me. They don't give you that chance. So for me, that's the reason why you and I keep going back and say, hey, we know shit. We don't know shit, right? You don't know shit. And to us, that particular concept helps with this, kind of like stop the assumption, because I don't know what that guy is doing. I don't know what that guy's map is. I don't know what that guy's paradigm is. So I don't know shit. So I'm going to take that stand. That way I know there's multiple maps. My map is not the only map. Therefore, that gives me a chance to stop and pause. Because if we embrace the we don't know shit concept, then it helps with this, because this assumption is human nature. Because we studied the thinking fast and slow. Our system one is always going to fill in the missing information. It's going to try to do
jump
that.
to conclusions map, It's
right.
like,
and so how can I make the decision the easiest? That's what it's going to do. But you need your system two, your conscious brain, to say, okay, system one, I know this is really the way you should be doing things, but I'm here to kind of make the final judgment. And so inject in that, say, hey, when you make the decisions, making sure that the map is correct. The map means that, whatever point of reference you're at, then you would be looking at the same thing. It's like if you tell me, hey, give me directions from one place to another place. How would you tell me? You have to tell me, there's a Starbucks on the right when you go down this, this interstate or whatever. So the interstate, the Starbucks, all these are points of reference that you and I both have to have on our map for us to be able to communicate. And a lot of times, the map that we have, because of our mental models, is completely different. And so in order for us to do that, we have to have the right map. So with that said, the people with the same map, among billions of people, there is not very many that's going to have the same map, right?
I mean, it's probably almost, it's probably it's probably impossible. I mean, like,
right.
Because there's no way that you could have the same lived experience as somebody else. Like,
exactly.
I mean, like,
exactly. And so that's why I disagree with your statement. Is that it's not 99%. Right. I think as long as you make an assumption, chances are you will be incorrect, but no one will tell you, because there's not an opportunity for you. You're not going out there and say, hey, hey, Chris, I'm assuming you're an asshole, right. Do you have anything to say? Right. Like, it's not like I give you that chance. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at you, didn't say a word in my head, say, that guy's an asshole. He made his wife cry. It's like, what the hell did he do to her? Right. And that's one
an incredibly good point. I mean, honestly, you really do, because like it's just basically confirmation bias. If I think somebody's an asshole and they never tell me what's going on, then I'm just gonna go, oh yeah, then when I see a guy a girl crying,
so after that, because of what I did before, I judge you, but I thought I judged you correctly. I use that in my system one as a positive enforcement for say, hey, continue to judge people.
Yeah,
continue to use your map to tell people, hey, they're standing in the wrong direction. They're going the wrong direction.
Right.
Right. Because you say, hey, why are you going that way? That's not the right way. But you say, you don't even know where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, you're making an incredibly great point. It reminds me of The Biggest Bluff, reflection, less certainty, more inquiry, right? Like, I mean, you cannot, paradigm shifting is a two-way street. It should be on, in that scenario, I just don't care about shifting somebody else's paradigm, because like,
I think shifting in this case is your paradigm, not theirs. Right. Because to me, it makes you a better person. It makes you a more versatile, more powerful person, just because you're able to look at multiple maps. Just like, are you an explorer? Do you want one map or you want a lot of maps? with different, hey, I need a map of these streams. I need a maps of the mountain. I need a maps of all the plants. I need a maps of all the stuff. So you can't have all the maps in one, right? Because it's just too crowded. You can't read it. But I say, hey, I want a map of all the natural resources, right? If you need to go collect the natural resources, you need that map. If you know, hey, I need to defend and run a military campaign, I need a map of the terrain, right? And so a different map.
Or if you need to give somebody a hug and just say, I'm here to listen, like you need to, that's a different, it's a different map.
So the map is like a mental model, and my friend Eric would say, it's like when one person look at the forest, it's like a businessman, his map would say, hey, the profit I'm gonna make, make from this forest. The guy with an ecologist would say, the impact of all the deers and the animals and all that. So it think different, And so the saying, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? They're using the same map and they use that to apply to everything else, but it's like forcing a square peg into a round hole, right? It's just one of those things. So if you think about it, if you are able to switch the maps, how much more versatile you will be, how much more powerful you can be as a person versus, I'm not asking you to change anyone's perspective. I'm not just asking you to say, hey,
sorry. All you're asking is ask a question. Like, that's really all you're asking is to not take whatever you see as face value and to go engage in a dialogue with somebody or ask questions to discover more. Like it sounds so basic and simple because it is, but it's also it's scary. To be fair, putting myself in the other person's shoes in the scenario that I was describing, like I don't know. Maybe I'm walking into somebody that, maybe has a gun on him. Maybe he's walking her to the park to go, maybe he's kidnapping her. Like, maybe, there's for as sad and of an example that I was giving in this scenario for a particular scenario that could have been happening. There could be a lot of really dangerous and scary scenarios, and if you open up ask that question, it's could be a bad thing.
It's good for business because you'll be able to sell better because you are getting to the right need and problem of your prospect, because it's just like, hey, so that makes you a better salesperson, it makes you a better friend, it makes you a better everything. Whatever it is, asking the questions to know what map are we using before we make any kind of response, it makes you a whole person above everybody else. And to me, isn't that a good thing if you can do that, right? 100%. And it's also make you a person that's not gullible, because I can trick you, I can make you show you a map and then you basically going to fall for it, right? If I say, hey, I'm going to Disney World, and along the way I saw an animal and he cracks, what is he?
I don't know.
Exactly. You say, I don't know. But more people say, no duck. Yeah. It doesn't have to be duck. It's actually a real duck.
Right.
Or it's actually some quacker person.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say it could be anything.
Exactly. So that's the power if you say, because most people assume they have only one map.
Yeah.
One paradigm, and they live inside that paradigm. That's fine. You live in that paradigm, which is your environment, right? Because I mentioned Disney, and everybody use Disney as an anchor, right? They anchor and then they say, well, what's the animal that cracks? It's going to be Donald Duck, right? 99% will say that. But I can prove you wrong because, like I say, it's a quacker person, a real duck, or somebody just, yell quack or whatever. And so that's the thing is, if you don't have the ability to shift your paradigm, then you are a one-trick pony. You are a one-minded person. So
everything's a hammer, like you said, everything's a nail,
exactly.
Right. And
to a guy with a hammer, everything looks like a nail because he's anchored on his particular map.
it reminds me of, I don't know, did we talk about the entrepreneurial roller coaster yet? I know you and I read that one together, but
we read it, but I don't know.
I don't think we talked about that one yet. Okay. But it reminds me of that story of the real estate agent and the entrepreneur roller coaster, when he was talking about, like, I don't sell condos, you know. He only works in like 2 buildings or whatever on South Beach, and he you know, he makes, like, you know, he's the most successful real estate agent in Miami, and he sells just like an insane amount of about units. And he was and Darren was interviewing them, and he was like, you know, what's your secret? And he was like, well, I don't sell real estate. He was like, well, what do you sell? And he was like, well, I sell parking spaces, I sell closets, I sell, you know, an extra bedroom for your kids, you know, yeah, like, you know, I mean, he was like, I sell whatever their need is, you know, because I listen to them, and they're saying, oh yeah, well, we just had another kid, and like, we're running out of space in our house. Oh, so this is an important place for you to get, you know, XYZ, you know, or whatever. Or, you know, I love cars, and I just don't have no spaces.
Yeah, this one has 3-car garage and an extra thing over there, and you can also have this spot where you can build out when you need to. It's like, okay, so who cares about the rest of the house?
Pretty much
for me. I mean, like, for me, yeah, show me a gourmet kitchen. It's like, I don't even look at the living room or anything else. Just show me a gourmet kitchen with all the bells and whistle, and you got yourself a buyer.
I mean, that's exactly right. Like, he's not, you know, you only can get to that though by asking the questions, and then, like you said, understanding what paradigms.
What's the map are they using?
Right, exactly. Right. And like, it's, I mean, it's a really important lesson for this whole entire journey, because it's what we basically talk about in a roundabout sort of way, in a lot of different, you know, reflections and a lot of different things that we learned. But it always goes back to, you don't know anything, ask questions, be curious, you know, and explore, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it really, that's the mindset, the beginner's mind, I guess, you know. I know that in theory sounds great. It's really hard to do. I mean, it is really, really, really hard to do, to get out of your own paradigms every single day. And this is a good reminder for me, this conversation.
You're going against system 1. I mean, to tell the elephant to certainly jumped from one, you know, from one little, I don't know what you call it, like a platform or whatever, to the next platform, or jumping through the rings, whatever. It's not easy for a regular elephant to do that unless the elephant is really trained.
Right.
To do the circus, right?
Yeah, you're right.
He's trained to do the same thing. Hey, I remember the watering hole, and I'm going that way, and that's what I do. Until you are trained, which is going against the conditioning of the elephant for naturally when it was born, until when you're riding it only gonna do things it knows, which, like we said before, in system 1, based on thinking fast and slow, system 1 is gonna do anything automatic, but it's taking that over time. It knows that, hey, positively reinforcing this way to do things is a way that you want, and when you create that through a habit, it's going to take over, and it's going to do that automatically, and it will fill in the gaps. And that's what it does. It's making an assumption, because for it to say, hey, you know, I'm not going to do anything, well, you could be live in that situation, just because, let's say, okay, should I breathe or should I not breathe, right? If you let your system 2 takes control of your breathing, you're going to die just because you forget to breathe. System 2 is going to do that, and then system 2 is doing that thing, right? Until you tell me something different, I'm going to continue to do what I know how to do best. And so assumption is one of the things it does, right? And so in order for you to fix that, it's not to say that you stop the assumption. You just say, hey, put another extra layer of influence on the assumptions.
Yeah,
right? You can still make the assumption, but say, hey, you know, there are different layers that you can take the map. And so before you that, just stop for 1 second and see if the map is correct. Can you even verify whether or not there is a same point of reference from your map to the other person's map? So that triggers the inquiry, triggers the, hey, whatever the situation is, you need to ascertain some kind of,
you need to gather more data.
Some kind of data you can go. Like I said, if you understand me, talk to me about what I like to do during my free time, right? I like to cook. Therefore, you sell me the kitchen. You don't need to sell me the house or sell me how big the land is, because just that big thing. And you just had, what do you do in your free time? Well, what people like to do the
Well, I talk to
most.
this dude every single night about, books and stuff. Oh, well, I got a great library in this place. Like you got all these books, like, you gotta need a place to store it. You need a nice office space to have a conversation.
Yes.
And
I'm
I'm
gonna
be like,
exactly.
I'm like, yeah, what, that would sell this. These are really nice bookshelves around here. I can see this. Yeah, this is really cool. This would be an awesome study.
And also with that, even with that, you shifted your paradigm to align with the person's other paradigm. But you can also, once you connect on his paradigm, you can actually shift his paradigm, because like you're saying, hey, he once you understand that he's an avid reader, he loves books, right? He didn't see the bookshelf, maybe not, but it's easy for him to be kind of like hinted on the number of bookshelf the house has.
Right.
And that may shift his paradigm as well. So you're able to shift only when you can align with his paradigm, and then they connect with that commonality before you can shift his perspective.
100%. So I'll my final thought that I want to take around this conversation is so what, right? Like it's great. So you can shift your paradigms and be able to connect with other people. So you can go sell a house, like, so what? So you can be a card, play, poker better or something like that, where you can see where people are coming from and understand, like we talked about with the Biggest Bluff book, like, like you said, whatever other examples you said, sell something to somebody, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So I was thinking, yes, that can be used, by shifting paradigms. You can get, you don't just do it for gain though. I think for me personally, the so what is, humanity is all about communication in general. We're social creatures. Like we want to feel connected, meaningful work, meaningful relationships. We want to be able to share with other people, what we do and what's important to us, and the emotions that we're going through in our life. Otherwise, what's it all about, right? Like, so if you're constantly walking through life with the whole, flip it around of less certainty, more inquiry, right? Like if you flip that around of less inquiry, more certainty kind of thing, and more assumptions, you're missing out on so many opportunities to communicate, connect, to build relationships with other humans out there in the world, and by getting on their paradigm, right? Like there's a huge missed opportunity for every single person that walked by me that day, walking down that street, like, and walking by my wife and walking down the street and just coming over and putting their arm on us and saying, like, what's going on? Like, I mean, do you want to talk about it or whatever it may have been? And we probably just would have broke down. And I mean, we talked about our daughter. I mean, like, I wanted to talk about my daughter. I talk about my daughter all day, every day. If you gave me an opportunity to go, explain to somebody what we just went through at that time, like I certainly wouldn't have had words to put in to describe, but I would have. I mean, yeah, I wanted to talk about it, Amelia. Like, I mean, it would have helped to talk about it versus just keeping things inside and walking down the street. Like you could have helped somebody else, right? You could have been there for somebody else. You could have built a friendship. You could have met a new neighbor. I mean, I say all this stuff to say, like, I'm not good at this myself. I don't do this every single day myself. I should be better at it, because that's what it's about, right? So that's the so what for me, right? Like, it's, yes, you can use this for personal gain, but at the same time, you could also use it to just be a better human.
Right. But at the end of the day, we talking about human, right? Human species. We are basically built upon making memories. And that's why experience is so important nowadays. Talking about experience, I need experience this, experience that. Yeah, talking about user experience, and everything's about experiences.
Yeah.
Right. And because experiences make memory, and for us as a human species to have more enjoyable moments versus moments of anguish, right? Which one would you want? Well, the thing is, if you do the things that connect with other people, let people appreciate you, let you appreciate people, then you see the beauty in the world, and you will have more memories.
Yeah.
Which is good memories, right? Good memories. And the thing is, what else is there that you want? I mean, you don't have to do it for selfish reasons, but you say, well, what am I doing here on earth, right? I mean, I need to have memories. What are my memories? Who am I? I can just be another person. And so it's one of those things where this kind of concept, this kind of idea will allow you to use that as a lever to open the doors to other people. Because I can come to you, Chris, and I say, you know, ma'am, is this guy bothering you? Right? What would you do? It's just the same curiosity. But if you say, you know, would you like to talk about it? I'm here to listen. That opens a whole different door. That's a key to open a different door. Right? Versus giving somebody an option. And so for me, having this paradigm, it's very, very powerful, even though it doesn't seem like that at first, but it is one of the fundamental need we have as a human. Because you think about it, I ask you, if you make $1 billion, but you can't tell anyone.
What's the point?
Right? If you ran a marathon under 2 minutes, but you can't tell anyone. Right?
You mean 2 hours, by the way, but
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So like whatever record that you want to have, whatever achievement that you accomplished, you can't tell anyone. How would that?
What's the point? I mean, what's the point? Like, I mean, it's like who cares? You know?
Exactly.
I mean,
so the important thing is about celebrating it with people that you admire, that appreciates you, and you appreciate them. That's a connection that we have as human beings. And so this paradigm that you learn to shift allows you to connect and to open the doors. And then, right, it's for you and it's for them. Because when you hear your story, right, you have learned a new perspective. So the thing is that ideas that we share, it does not get diminished because we shared it. Think about it. If there's an idea or an experience that you share, does the idea goes away from you and go into the other? It doesn't. It multiplies when you share.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the thing. It makes both of the person connecting better than they were before.
I couldn't agree more.
And so if we use a paradigm of limitations, not abundance, we say, well, if I share it, that means that I have less of it. And that paradigm is wrong in that case. Right? I'm not saying I don't know shit, but I know that there's different paradigms you can use. So yeah, the so what means that, hey, you know, you do it for yourself or you do it for others. I mean, it's only two. But the thing is, it's going to give you both because it takes two to tango.
Right. It's that powerful too. Yeah, and you're right. And it's right
about, because when somebody gives, somebody has to receive.
Right. It's about connection. I mean, like that's what all humanity is about, you know.
Like being a quarterback and you pass the receiver. I mean, if they got them catch, it's not a connection.
Yeah, would Tom Brady, if he had no wide receivers, if he was just throwing balls, you know, to no one, would anybody care? Of course not. No, like he'd just be a dude that threw the ball like to a tree. You know, like,
how good he is, and would people say if you know there's no receiver, he just throw wherever, and like, oh, there's nothing impressive, but like he throws to that guy over there at that moment, you know, at that stride. Yes, it's impressive. He's a go. But you know, if there isn't the receiver, then you know it's not as impressive because we just don't see it. But like I said, you know, back to what we're saying is this book is really, really packed with a lot of wisdom that it's not hard to understand, but it's also very, very
but also very hard to understand. Like,
yes.
I mean, it's your analogy of the elephant earlier. You're right. Like, I mean, we think that we have so much to do in the course of a day, you know. I mean, and we train our. I mean, like, look, it's not lost on me that we're kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth, because we're all about talking about consistency and building habits that are aligning to your values and yada 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 and all that other stuff that we like to talk about, because it is important, right? And aligning it to your purpose. But at the same time, like, you know, you have to also constantly be willing to say, well, maybe these values aren't the right values. Maybe the stuff that I'm doing every single day isn't the right stuff, and still ask the questions and be curious and still go explore humanity and help each other. So it's always a balance. It's always a polarity. It's always, a give and take to find that.
But at the end of the day,
homeostasis,
it's about finding meaningful work, meaningful relationship. I mean, whatever values brings you that, do that.
Yes. So I suggest you should build in to help your paradigm, to help your paradigm building muscle, the idea of
you must have to switch paradigms. I mean, the thing is, I'm going on a trip, and I run across this convenience store, and I just pick up a map, and I say, well, I'm gonna take this route. Does that work?
It can, but probably not a good idea.
How many? What's the percentage what's the chances that I pick the right map, and I'm starting where I'm at? Here you are.
I don't know. I mean,
it's very low.
It's very low.
I'm just going to a convenience store, pick up a map. I didn't say any particular map. Just pick up a map, and I'm gonna pick a route. Say, I'm going from this route to that route. It's like, first of all, I don't know if the right map. I don't know, and then second of all, I don't even know where you are on the map.
But what if you have no destination?
Still, I don't care. Even if you have this destination, it's like you say, I'm gonna pick this map. Well, this map say there's this thing here, but then I'm driving on this road. I don't see it. What's the chances that I pick the right map and the right road, and I see the thing that I'm supposed to see that correspond on the map? Hey, I saw this statue or whatever on this route.
Very highly unlikely. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. And so in life, it's the same thing.
Right.
You can't just pick a map at random. And in life, there's more maps than there is maps that we talk about, like physical maps.
It's an infinite number,
right? I mean,
it's every single person.
So your chance of picking the right map, it is so low that you probably win a lottery multiple times before you can pick the right map.
Yeah,
like in real life.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
but the thing is, just one thing gonna give you the right map. Ask for it. Hey, where am I at? Right? What do you know that I know that it's the same? And then the two maps combined together, and you say, well, I'm on the right map. Yes.
Right. I mean,
and that's the power of allowing your memory muscle to switch out maps as the situation arises, and don't use a map to because. And so, all right, people say, hey, I need a map. Oh, I have a map. Here you are. Right? That's what we do. But the thing is, we should do, hey, okay, I need a map. The question, hey, what kind of map do you need? Right? Think about it. Right now, everybody say, okay, if I say I need a map, everybody say, hey, here's a map. You ask for a map. But I just give you a map because you said, hey, I need a map. I have a
somebody
map.
Walks up and says, solve all my problems. Here you go.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, is we just need to have that one step of the predetermining, the step prior to giving the map. Say, what kind of map do you need?
Yeah, what's your problem?
Right?
Like,
what's your real problem?
Yeah, right. No, serious. I mean, if you just walked up to somebody and said, hey, make me happy. Okay, here you go. Like, live your life. Do what you want.
I know recipe to be happy. Here you go.
Well, it's kind of what social media is these days. It's just like, people throwing random maps out there to and we don't ever get a chance to dive deeper into it. It's just like
it's like people say, somewhere in some place or happier, and Europe is happier than America. Right. Then why the hell do you go to America for? Stay over there. Don't come here.
Fine. I was I'll sum up my thoughts in this conversation, I guess, personally. You and I couldn't probably be two more different people when it comes to like a lot of things and our own personal maps, right? Like the importance of sharing, having a shared paradigm is the reason why we do what we do every single day, because we've been able to figure out. Right. It allows us to get situations where, every single day after day after day, we're further confirming that we're still on the same path together, like otherwise we wouldn't do this shit. Like we would both be like, I don't know where this is going, man. Like, like, and that's okay. Like, but you know, at the end of the day, I think we both know why we're on the same path, and we both know how we got on that path, and we both know that where we ultimately want this path to end up at someday. And we're going to take our own different approaches to it, but at least we understand together, like, you know, going through this, like, this is where we're both going, and we're cool with that, you know, and whatever come what may, you know. But like, I don't think that there's no way that any of this is possible without us being aligned on that, the actual destination that we're going, and the steps that we want to take along the way.
I mean, it has to be the same direction. Otherwise, it's going to be, you know, a chore for the other person. And if it's a chore, something that you don't want,
then it's not.
It cannot sustain this long.
Right.
Just cannot.
Yep, I agree.
Right.
I mean,
because you think about it, it's not like anyone is paying you to do any of these, right? It's not like it's like an immediate reward, or like 10 years from now you have a bunch of money or anything like that. It's not like that, right? It's like, hey, it's a nonprofit. There's no money in it, but yet you and I do this every day for 2 years, right? And if it's not in the same directions, I can't do it for this long. I can pretend to do it, but it won't last. And if you can't do it, you can pretend, but you won't make it this long. I don't care how good you are, Chris. If it's not something that aligns with your values, it's a drag. It's a drag on you, right?
Willpower can only take you so far, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's depleting. It's a depleting resource. But I think we're officially out of time on this one tonight, though. Yes. You know,
so
you know,
more
7 Habits.
Part 3 to come next episode. So stay tuned. This book is really great. Yes. Most people, when they look at this book, they say, well, there's not too much to take out of it, just because, you know, it's like, okay, it's not that complex.
Yeah, I know this.
But if you really try to study it, it's actually a lot of things that it's not easy to incorporate. Just because it's simple to understand doesn't mean it's easy to incorporate into your life.
No, it's actually, it's never going to be easy. I mean, it's always going to be a challenge.
Pretty hard.
Like it's like I said, I could go from, I wrote this, I lived this, and I still struggle today, you know, as further time passes and my elephant gets back on the schedule again, and I stop asking as many questions all the time. And, you know, it's important that's why this is important for you and I to do this stuff, because I mean, it's why it's important for me to write it in the first place. It's important for me to experience it and reflect on it in the first place. It's important for me to go learn other ways to embrace it. And then it's important for us to talk about it together and share these conversations together to make sure that you remember shit and to keep it going, you know. Like this is it's a never-ending journey.
The elephant for us, you know. We got to talk about these concepts that we learn. We're talking about the beaver must dam, you know, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We don't know shit. These are training the elephants, and we are better for it, just because that is the toolbox that we go to, and in those boxes, we have these tools, and we can use them, right? And we can use them at our fingertips.
I mean, even a damn beaver would probably forget how to dam if you spent 2 years not damming, you know, and he'd probably be like, what do I do again? I take this.
Do I get stars? Do I get rocks? What is it?
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, can't wait for the conversation tomorrow, and we'll do part 3. And question we can leave with everybody is, what are the most powerful paradigm shifting moments of your life that you can reflect back on, and how you felt in that moment, and how you can apply that going forward? So go ask some more questions. We will see you all tomorrow.
Sounds good. See ya.